Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Tech Talk Tuesday podcast. I'm your host, Ryan McQueeney, and today you'll actually have the pleasure of hearing a few voices besides my own, as I'm joined by a pair of guests from Robo Global, an index and research company focused on the budding robotics and automation industries. This is a topic we cover frequently on this show, and I believe that's for good reason. Robotics, automation, and AI are creeping into nearly every corner of the technology sector, and investors need to be prepared for the effects this evolution will have on their portfolios. I also love chatting with the folks at Robo Global because they have a unique perspective on these trends. Robo Global designed the Robo Global Robotics and Automation Index, the first index designed specifically to give investors exposure to the robotics and automation industry. The ETF that tracks this index is the Global Robotics and Automation Index ETF, and it trades under the ticker ROBO, R-O-B-O. Today, I got to talk to Chris Buck, head of capital markets at Robo Global, and Wyatt Newman, a member of the advisory board at the company, about a number of pressing issues in this field, and I hope you enjoy the interview. Thank you both so much for joining me today. Just so our listeners can keep track of the two voices coming through the line, can we start by having you two introduce yourselves and explain your roles at Robo Global? Chris, if you want to start us out there.
Thank you. I'm a managing partner, so I'm one of the five business leaders that run the business, and I'm head of capital markets and sales at Robo Global, and I sit on our index investment committee.
Hi, this is Wyatt Newman. I am a technical advisor to Robo Global, and my day job is I am an academic. I am a professor at Case Western Reserve University, and I've been engaged in robotics and artificial intelligence research for the last 30 years.
Awesome. So thank you guys again for joining me. I want to start with an easy question, I think having a little bit of fun with it, and I'd like both of you to answer with your own thoughts here. So what, in the simplest of terms and in your own opinion, is the single most exciting thing about investing in the robotics, automation, and AI space right now?
Maybe I'll start. Wyatt can definitely get into the technicals and the opportunity and the growth, but it's really one of those rare investment opportunities for investors. We believe we're at the very beginning of what will likely be a multi-decade investment. And it's likely to be, part of the risk is not being invested, and we certainly believe many of the investors should have some allocation to Robo, the ticker ROBO. And again, the risk is probably not being involved, but it's going to be a multi-decade investment opportunity, so it's pretty exciting.
From my perspective, this is certainly exciting times. I've been through rise and fall of robotics, lived through a long robot depression, and I've seen it pick up remarkably. My students are getting great jobs. There's a whole lot more investment in it. You've probably seen claims that describing this as the third industrial revolution after steam and electricity. And I suspect that that's pretty close to the truth. It's not just, what's the fad this year? I think this is fundamentally transformational. And so it's a really exciting time.
Awesome. So Wyatt, I think I got a couple questions here directed more towards you and your expertise on the technical side of things. I want to make sure our listeners understand that although we're putting this into one umbrella category, different things move the needle for the AI and robotics industries. Still, obviously, these fields are closely tied together. In your view, has progress on one side of this conversation influenced the other side more, or how exactly is this relationship playing out right now?
I reviewed some of your previous podcasts, and I was trying not to be redundant. You nailed much of it. Congratulations on that. But a little bit of the history perhaps would help. There are specific technical developments we can point to that say why are robots coming up now, and in parallel, why is AI reemerging now. But in fact, and I think you pointed this out as well, the two of them definitely play off each other. Perhaps the robotics is the bigger winner out of the two because robots have really been held back by having dumb brains. And having better brains particularly from the new AI that is deep learning, is now making them much more competent, and that makes them much more capable in application domains that were not possible in the past. So certainly one is leveraging the other.
Awesome. Thanks for the affirmation that we're getting things close to right over here. That's always comforting to hear when it's such a complex topic. Now, I'd love to do a quick little mental exercise here with you related to the application of these new technologies. And as we've talked about on the show, and I think most people know by now, people understand that AI is really going to help revolutionize business segments like self-driving cars. We hear it a lot tied into like data marketing and even into robotics a little bit, the medicine and healthcare applications of this new technology. Can you think of one or two applications for AI and robotics that might have a profound impact on humanity, which the general public is not aware of yet?
Okay, that actually is a tough one because there's been so much sci-fi, right? So we have great expectations. But one of the areas that I'm pretty excited about, though I'm going to have to wait because it's one of the toughest ones to do, is in the domestic applications. And you had alluded to this as well in things like iRobot. But what's really hard to do in the home as a general home robot is to have versatility. I want you to be able to put away my groceries, cook my meals. I want you to clean the windows, do the bathrooms. I want you to be my butler and be my security. I want you to do everything all the time. And if a robot really could do that, it would be worth a tremendous amount, right? People would take out robot mortgages in order to do that. It'd be hard to imagine living without one. I think our lives truly would be transformed by that if you just assumed that, yes, we all have electronic servants. Another area that's coming much faster, though, because it's almost ready, is autonomous vehicles. With autonomous vehicles, we will disrupt the current automotive sector. It will change the quality of life for people who, in an aging population in particular, who are concerned about driving at night or increasing hazards that we have from people texting and driving. And autonomous vehicles are going to let us probably not even own vehicles, sort of in the Uber and Lyft model, but also are going to get us around safer and faster, will reduce costs on the highways and increase efficiency and improve quality of life. So in the short term, autonomous vehicles, and in the longer term, I think the domestic robots.
So I want to just a quick follow-up question on that idea of the domestic robots. As you mentioned, there's been so much sci-fi over the years, and that kind of robotic servant in these sci-fi films and movies and books and whatever you want to watch or consume. Those robotic servants oftentimes are playing an antagonist role, and we like to focus on how all of this technology could go wrong and come back to be the demise of humanity. Do you think that this kind of negative stereotype is a hurdle in terms of public perception and getting the general public to kind of warm up to the idea of a robot in their home?
Certainly, there's much discussion of that, much fear about that, as you mentioned, all the robot Armageddon movies. But in fact, people are remarkably receptive to robots. And in my experience, the little Roomba robot, for example, I think is not a great vacuum cleaner. But people still buy it just because they're willing to cut robots some slack. They just want them. I particularly see when we do exhibits and open labs and such, I particularly see the young children being enthusiastic and having to explain to their parents, no, it's a robot, Daddy. That the people are just ready. I think they want these. In spite of all of that concern, I think that we're enthusiastic about it. But there are other influences as well. I mean, if you look at like the industrial policy of China 2025, it's pretty clear that we had better lead or fall behind, and that will propel us forward, and fear is not going to hold us back.
Sure. Thank you for that insight. Chris, I want to shift back over to your expertise a little bit more in the financials that are going into this. We obviously have tons of reasons from an investing perspective to be bullish right now. But as investors know, with any of these new fields, there's going to be risks. What are, in your view, the biggest risk factors we need to keep our eyes on in the coming years in this space?
Well, I think for investors, whether you're trying to cobble together a handful of securities that you think are a representative sample of the exposure, you need to keep an eye on valuations. We've seen cases where, if you look at the internet bubble and some of the other bubbles, people tend to invest in the names that everybody knows, and sometimes those can get pricey. So for investors, you really need to pay attention to kind of the valuations of the portfolio. And for an example, in the Robo Global Index, which is the index that the Robo ETF is based on, our forward-looking multiple from a median perspective is right around 22. And this is right around where we were before it went up 47-50% in 2017. So the valuations currently are not rich, even in the index. But you can see from time to time, especially if you're market cap weighted, and by that I mean that you tend to put more in the larger names. Sometimes the larger names that everybody knows can be up. You know, you look at stocks like NVIDIA today, which is taking a big hit. A forward PE, it's looking at 40, 50 times earnings. So if you put a ton of your money in a stock that has, is priced that rich to the market, and you have down days like we see when there's headline risk about trade wars, certainly those stocks can come back to earth pretty quickly. So from our perspective, what investors need to be cognizant of is valuations and really diversifying across the whole spectrum or the whole ecosystem and just not taking a few concentrated bets.
Great. Yeah, definitely hitting on a few points we like to harp on here as well. Finally, wrapping things up here, if you do your homework on investing in this space, you'll quickly learn that the Robo ETF is one of two major funds kind of tracking this industry. What do you guys think makes Robo stick out? Chris, maybe that's another question for you. What do you think makes Robo stick out, and why is it kind of the best option for investors in their portfolio right now?
Well, one, we're 5 years old. We'll be 5 years in the market in October. Some of the newer ETFs are untested. They've been out on the market for about a year. And this is our singular focus. Wyatt is one of 7 PhDs that are strategic advisors. So we're a forward-thinking qualitative index. We do a lot of bottom-up work in trying to find the best stocks. Being equal weight, we have 88 names, and we're 70% mid-cap and small-cap with 60% international. So it's really the benefit that we believe we provide investors is a single focus. We leverage the best of both worlds, the strategic advisors and then the financial engineering of creating an index. So it's really just a focus or purpose.
As a technical advisor to Robo, I'd have to emphasize the quality of their technical advisors as an asset.
Well said, definitely. All right, thank you guys for joining me. As I've said, just great insight. I know our listeners love to hear about a space with so much potential, and we know Robo Global has a unique perspective on that. So thank you, Chris and Wyatt, and we look forward to hearing from you guys again soon.
Anytime. Would love to participate in the future. Thank you.